It's a long way up the road, but we'll be discussing a lot of long journeys as we go through this debate and try to make some progress. At the outset of the debate, can I just say that my colleague Deborah is extremely disappointed that she's not able to be here today. She is a passionate advocate for Fermanagh South Tyrone and the South West Acute Hospital, and I'm sure that we do wish her all the best at this difficult time. I was talking to Deborah today, and she also wanted me to put on the record her thanks for the way that she has been treated. She is very grateful for all of the work, and that is from the local community midwife right through to the hospital consultants. And it just does show that sometimes in this House, and the Minister is going to smile when I say this, but it does show that sometimes we do focus on things when they are wrong, or focus on the things that really need fixed or are urgent. But there are everyday people doing tremendous work in our hospitals. Emergency general surgery at the SWA is not just a local issue, it is also a regional one. And it is also one that has deep significance for how we transform our services and the basis on which we proceed. For families in Fermanagh, the South West Acute Hospital is not just another hospital option. It is the only acute hospital which is accessible within a reasonable time frame. And for anyone who knows the geography of this most westerly part of Northern Ireland, travel time from somewhere like Rosslea to Altnagelvin is almost 2 hours. For those in Fermanagh, distances are long, roads are challenging, and alternatives are not as feasible as for those in urban areas. And this, Minister, is the stark reality of rural healthcare. As if this was not enough, the Western Trust is proposing a permanent hospital service change based on the premise that the current arrangements at Altnagelvin are suitable and coping well. But they're not. The Royal College of Emergency Medicine released figures for emergency waiting times on the 28th of August this year. They show that patients waiting in ED in Altnagelvin wait between 19 hours and 89 hours. That is 4 days before admission to a hospital bed. And I think we should, at this stage, acknowledge that Altnagelvin is also a hospital under huge pressure. Minister, you often talk about health inequalities, and rightly so. But I hope that we are not insisting on creating another health inequality for rural communities in Fermanagh and indeed the general population of the west of Northern Ireland. Rurality needs to be taken into account in the design of services and indeed in the transformation of our services. It is a fact that we desperately need transformation of health services in Northern Ireland, but this is a case where we are trying to transform services on the back of collapse and a lack of consultation with local people. And indeed, concerns about the consultation process into emergency general surgery at the SWA has also been expressed not just by local communities, not just by local political representatives, but also by the patient-client council that are set up to represent and express the needs of local patients in local areas. In December 22, the temporary removal of emergency general surgery at the SWA was brought about due to unplanned collapse in services. And many, and myself included, would argue that this situation has been compounded by the fact that in June 22, the former Health Minister Robin Swan published the Northern Ireland Review of General Surgery in Northern Ireland, which established regional standards that hospitals must meet to continue with both elective and general surgery. SWA could not meet those standards and therefore could not recruit, leading to a further crisis in staffing at the hospital. The Western Trust is now completing a consultation into the closure of emergency general surgery at the SWA. At the same time as this process from the Western Trust, the Department of Health and you, Minister, have been consulting on a hospital network plan. This consultation was launched in October 24. I think I looked at the date today, was the 1st of October 24. And we have yet to hear the outcome of the consultation process. Are you, Minister, still pressing ahead with the hospital network plan to change the SWA to a general hospital? 11 months after the publication of the plan, we still have no clear indication of what services will be under the roof of the SWA in the future, or what your plan is likely to look like. In the middle of all of this, Minister, you intervened via the local newspaper, which I have huge respect for. My father-in-law used to write copious letters to it every single week. I know you're laughing, but it's true. There was no communication, and you intervened asking for a sustainability plan for the SWA. No communication with elected representatives, despite the fact that Deborah Erskine and others were in direct communication with you before this intervention. Now, many have viewed this intervention as positive, and people in Fermanagh rightly want to know how these two processes correlate. Consultation into emergency general surgery, the hospital network plan, and the sustainability plan. How do these all work together? Which will come first? A decision on emergency general surgery or the reconfiguration decision? And Minister, so many have travelled from Fermanagh today, and others will be listening to this debate. And I hope that in your response to this debate that you have answers that the community in Fermanagh are so keenly awaiting. They deserve to know what health services will be provided for them in this part of Northern Ireland. I also want to just very quickly look at another key report into the issue of removing emergency general surgery at the SWA. The RQIA report expressed concerns at ambulance waiting times. Patients triaged at the SWA may need to be blue lighted to Altnagelvin or elsewhere, and concern was also expressed about the use of private ambulances which are not regulated. Double ED waits were also identified as a problem. Patients waiting in Enniskillen and then facing more waits at Altnagelvin. And I've outlined the extent of those waits in my earlier part of this contribution. When I asked the people who put together the RQIA report, I asked them why, if we are looking at doing something in terms of emergency general surgery at the SWA and taking that to Altnagelvin, were these processes not ironed out before this was decided? And I think today we need to know, have these processes been improved? Why has it taken so long to identify these? And again, is the system now more efficient? I know that many in the Western Trust and the Western Trust officials who briefed the committee would like to tell us that they are, but many of the testimonies from those who have experienced the services do not indicate that this is the case. And I think that these are really important issues that our community in Fermanagh deserve to know. Many from within the local Fermanagh community have joined together to express concern about healthcare provision in the area. And I have heard my colleague Deborah talk for many times about the issues of community pharmacy, about access to GPs and the difficulties that there is in bringing this all together. And the local group, SOAS, has produced a roadmap which could be considered for the SWA. And again, Minister, we are keen to know if any of the recommendations in that roadmap will be considered. Members of the local business community have also expressed their concern. They are local employers who point out that the provision of services is key to attracting the right workforce and achieving a regionally balanced economy, something that we talk about very, very often in this chamber. And they are calling for a proper conversation on healthcare provision in Fermanagh. Finally, Minister, we are all concerned about waiting times, but the reality is that 2 brand new operating theatres in the SWA have never been commissioned. Will the SWA now receive fair funding from the elective surgery framework and be able to take its rightful place in the drive to increase elective surgery and drive down waiting times? All of the 5 theatres and 312 beds should be used in the mission to eliminate the scandalous waiting times in Northern Ireland. And this matters to all of us. Minister, this is an important debate for constituents in Fermanagh, but it is also an important one for all of us in Northern Ireland. It points to almost a dysfunction in how we operate services in Northern Ireland for people. The number of consultations that we have ongoing, the interventions that we have, and the clear lack of process that a community can follow, or even that a community can feel involved in. The South West Acute Hospital is a fabulous facility. It is delivering vital health care to one of the most rural populations in Northern Ireland, and there should be a proper process and a proper level of access to health care for all in Fermanagh. And this will include sustaining services and outlining what those services should be for the hospital there, including emergency general surgery. And Minister, finally, you have an opportunity to clarify this situation today. There are many people who are watching this debate and waiting to hear of the way forward. And I hope that you will take cognizance of rural populations, deliver appropriate services appropriately staffed. Safe, sustainable service is not an outrageous demand. It is something that our population, and in this case, rural communities, deserve and should have. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Diane.